Keegan Blake, Adelant Energy.
Outstanding. The levels look good here for this interview. And let's talk a little bit about energy moving forward. That, of course, is your tagline for Adelant Energy. Let's start off with a little, kind of one of those elevator pitch commercials, if you will. Tell us about your company and how you guys are moving energy forward.
Okay, so first of all, thanks for the opportunity to talk. I'm glad we could finally figure out time to make it happen. I appreciate your time. A little bit about my company and the product that we offer is a pipeline silencer. To break it down real simple, basically during daily operations, pipeline operators and specifically are being exposed to dangerously high levels of noise when they're blowing down gas to atmosphere, or when they're depressurizing small vessels like a launcher or receiver for a pig. So what my device does is it's installed on a valve to kind of silence or suppress the gas as it's being evacuated to the atmosphere, and that protects an operator from noise-induced hearing loss, or basically from going deaf. So that's our number one concern, is protecting an operator's hearing and improving the quality of life for an operator, so that when he's in this industry for 10, 20, 30 years, by the end of it, he can still hear, and have that aspect of his life when he's at that age.
I guess I've never heard of this precaution or this issue or anything along those lines. Doesn't surprise me. I'm not, discounting what it is. What I'm doing is just I've never heard of it. Being in the media, I'll be perfectly honest. When I first started working at a radio station about 15 years ago, I think it was, is when I finally got at the computer system. I was on the air on a radio station for about 15 years, where I wasn't an employee. I had a key, and I just kind of came and went, and nobody, you know what I mean? And all the employees would laugh, like they're like, this guy doesn't even work here, and he's got one of the top rated shows. And anyway, but what I bring it up is that all of a sudden, when I got in the computer system through the radio station on the 10, the payment stubs and everything else like that, I started getting hearing loss ads in the mail. I started getting, hearing aids, and, you better get checked and things like that. So my name just went on a list as somebody who would be in the high risk of losing their hearing later in life because of the radio thing. I never thought of it that way before, but I suppose anything involving construction would really have some noise pollution to it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yep. Yep, and well, so my device is more geared towards after the construction phase, during the actual operation phase. So, like on a pipeline, for example, it has to be maintained. Part of that maintenance requires shooting pigs. Well, to shoot a pig, you have to depressurize a vessel every time to load a pig. So, basically, that's probably the most applicable scenario is during pigging operations for pipeline maintenance. So it's not only just a construction phase, but more so the entire life of the pipeline after that, where we can now lower the noise levels being emitted.
That's incredible. When I think that the energy industry has gone to new heights and to new slices of life, this one just blew me away. And the reason is because when we think of the environment, we look around and you see plants and trees and the things that make you feel good when it comes to the rivers and brooks. But there's the light pollution, and there's also noise pollution. And what you're doing is you guys are an example of something that's come out of the energy industry to help reduce noise pollution. Have you guys ever thought of that slice before?
Oh yeah, it's actually it's a big part of our really our appeal to not just the industry but society as well. Mind you, I live in Colorado, and I have a branch in Colorado, and down here, public perception is everything. So when an energy company can now take my technology and say, and then and implement it, they can now go to the public where they're trying to get these, permitting plans and these development plans. They can now say, look, we're implementing this technology that's going to reduce the effect of noise even on the public. It's going to reduce, public nuisance and public complaints. So, and then there's the entire other aspect just of the environmental side. Noise not only affects us humans, but it also affects, animals and birds and migratory patterns and all sorts of different things, on in the mammal world or in the, avian world as well. So.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I remember last year I interviewed a few people down in Texas that worked for the McDonald's Observatory about how they're working with the energy industry for light pollution, and in a variety of different ways with the flares, but also when you're talking about just lights in general, urbanization, light pollution is a thing too. And so just kind of interesting. I don't know. Like I said, a lot of people look around and they see the green trees and the rivers and brooks, and that's what they think the environment is. But there's so much more that goes into it, whether it be the air quality or noise pollution or, like I said, even light pollution from that aspect. So you guys are doing that, pipelines. Tell me about your background a little bit. In our preliminary discussion, it sounded like, you traveled a little bit with your company, or that you've been moving from place to place where the pipelines need you.
Right. Yep. So I've been in the industry for about 7+ years. I started in the Uinta Basin over in Utah, and then I migrated over here to Colorado. I've done facility construction in Wyoming, mostly just pipeline operations, though. That's kind of what I've stuck to for the majority of my career, and that's kind of where the idea originated. Was I was actually blowing down some gas, and when I say blowing down, I mean releasing gas to the atmosphere one day at work, and I had this idea pop in my head and just thought, gosh, there's got to be a better way to do this than having to rely on these stupid earplugs that we never wear, So, and just from then it kind of took off. It's been about 4 years in development, and we just now, after all this time and money invested, have launched to market this summer. So it's been a long journey, a lot of learning for sure, and just trying to keep it pushing forward.
You live in Colorado. There's obviously some brouhahas happening in Colorado when it comes to the energy industry, environmentalists, perception of renewable energy, perception of fossil fuels. How involved with it are you in terms of just keeping up with it, considering you live and work in it? But is there any other way that you're involved a little bit more or anything along those lines?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to be as involved as I can, especially during key moments such as council meetings where oil and gas presence is really needed. I've attended multiple council meetings and been able to at least show my support in that way. Social media is a great platform. Facebook, any type of social media platform is good to really just make the truth known, because it's not so much right now, trying to figure out what exactly is, safe and unsafe. I mean, those statistics are out there. There's so much quantifiable data that supports oil and gas development in the state of Colorado. I mean, our emissions have been lowered drastically as our production is increasing. Like, oil and gas is not the problem. It's just, organizing enough to show the people that are just spewing complete lies that, that's not the case, that there is actual data that supports safe energy development. So, yeah, I try to be as involved as I can be when my time allows, for sure.
The governor of Colorado has called it a war on oil and gas. How much of this do you believe is myth busting in terms of emotion versus facts?
Yeah, that's really exactly what it comes down to. It's emotion based decision making versus factual based decision making, and it's trying to really, it's about public education. It's about informing the public, and spreading the word with actual data and studies that have been done, that is what's going to convince people, other than that's going to convince people a lot more than playing off their emotions. And people, I think, will come through and will see through those kind of tactics when they're used. So that's the hope.
Well, I tell you one thing that I've noticed is that when it starts affecting people's pocketbook, they seem to notice pretty quick. And that's what happened in Germany. In Germany, over the past decade, they've been just touting going off of fossil fuels, like fossil fuels is an evil Monty Burns sitting up there trying to block the sun, And
Yep.
Monty Burns from The Simpsons, for those of you out there who didn't get the Monty Burns reference. But it's a lot different when you can use emotion, because people are quick to judge on emotion. But getting back to the Germany thing, over the course of 10 years, really at the end of the day, their electric bills quadrupled, 4 or 5 times what they were paying before, and they still had to fire up the coal power plants 2 months ago. And the other part about Germany that not many people really talk about is they're burning up a lot of wood pellets. So they're importing wood pellets from all over the world,
Right.
and that sort of thing. So it's not as green as people think. So when you start making people pay a little bit more, they start to pay a little bit more attention, and all of a sudden the logic part kicks in a little bit, because when things are good, man, it's easy to pander on people's heartstrings and that sort of thing. That's actually, we're a non-political program, and one of the reasons we started following this was because it's gotten beyond political. It's gotten into pandering to where they're using so much sleazy tactics is really the only way to put it, because it is sleazy what they're doing, because it's wrong, it's disingenuous, and they know it. They know they're being disingenuous. They have meetings how to trick people, how to use certain images and that sort of thing, and it's really too bad, because I don't know your opinion on this. I'd really like to get your opinion on this, being you're in the pipeline business. When you start messing with people's energy, it becomes a little bit more discriminatory than people realize, because the people impacted are the poor people right away, because they're the ones having trouble paying their heat bill. So have you guys ever, does that ever come up at any of the meetings, that sort of thing, as far as how they're trying to slant this, that every time we pump a barrel of oil out of the ground, 4 baby angels die?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you got to kind of expect that people that are going to fall for such baseless, statements, you got to expect people are going to do their own research, and hope that, as a society, we haven't forgotten that, we need to do our own research and not just believe anything somebody tells us. I'm a firm believer that, my kind of pitch on it is, I'm a huge believer in innovation. And I think that as an industry, we're going to continue to evolve, and innovations like mine, where, my device can now bridge a gap somewhat between the angry mob of anti-oil and gas activists and the industry. Innovations and technologies can come about, and help bridge the gap, and we can find a compromise between the two. But without the opportunity and without responsible discussion in between the two to see what the issues are, innovation can't exist. So, I think as an industry, we need the opportunity to be able to, to at least even see the problems before we can correct them. And that's going to come after, I think, a lot of open discussion with people that are, willing to have a discussion instead of just playing off emotions. And when the other side, I think, can calm down and talk like, an adult, and actually, have a conversation about a subject besides just spewing all these things. I mean, until that point, it's not going to go anywhere. But
first story that we did here at the Crude Life 8 years ago was this oil boom is not or I should say the shale revolution is not an oil boom. It's a technology boom. And because of the innovation driving behind it, oil was driving it, but really what was making the economic portion spur for this modern day oil boom was innovation. Talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned your product being an innovative piece of that shale revolution. So, feel free to give it a nice little plug on how the innovation has transformed the industry. And then talk to me a little bit about how that innovation really has created opportunities for you guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, like I said, it kind of acts as a bridge between the two parties at an argument right now, between the anti-oil and gas people and the people that want to try and say we make life, miserable for everyone. And the energy industry, my device is something that, can now help, at least on the industry side, reduce public nuisance and reduce public, annoyance towards the industry. So there's a lot of value in it that way. And I think my product is one of many. I definitely have to give a shout out to another company I work for, Extraction Oil and Gas. Just as another example, they use what's called the Quiet Fleet. It's an electric drilling rig that also reduces noise emissions. So I think the more that the public and these local societies that we're operating in, the more that they understand that, we are making advances in technology. We are making efforts to improve, our operations and our effect on everyone else. And the more that they understand that we've actually, we are producing these types of helpful technologies, I think it's going to be a lot easier for them to understand that, we're not their enemy and that we can come in and actually coexist, in the same city. So
I've made the argument on this program that it seems to me that energy has gotten politicized, just like gun control and a few of the other polarizing issues. The energy industry for a long time invested in government relations. And of course, politicians then, they took that and then all of a sudden became kind of the spokesman for the energy industry and kind of just all of a sudden woke up and it became a polarizing issue like that, to where you got two presidential candidates actually trying to ban it, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
What are your thoughts on, maybe, well, like I said, I've made the argument the energy industry needs to reinvent their public relations. The paradigm shift that happened with horizontal drilling, the paradigm shift that happened with big data and all the HR departments. You got innovation that's created a paradigm shift in noise pollution. I wonder if it's time that the energy industry doesn't, make a paradigm shift with their approach to public relations and connecting and engaging with people. Your thoughts on that, since you're in Colorado?
Well, honestly, I think Colorado is kind of at the forefront of the argument and the debate overall. I think, and it's pretty crazy because Colorado is the most regulated state in the nation. I mean, it's the strictest state as far as adhering to regulations for oil and gas, and yet it's the most demonized, in the industry. You said it's been politicized. I think it's, at least here, it's been more demonized as if it's this horrible thing, and people are so willing to jump on their phone and type out all of these hateful things towards the industry on the very phone that was made through a petroleum process. It's just, it's pretty mind-boggling. But I think down here in Colorado, I think there's been a lot of companies and a lot of different organizations that have stepped up and are opening that door to have communication. And I think um, down here at least, I think we're making a lot of headway with the public. I think that, the public is now being informed, and it's not so much just this, this argument. I think that people are actually um, starting to understand that we can operate responsibly and we can operate safely because we have to. Our companies down here, we're being forced and regulated to, and we're being forced to be involved, and it's a good thing.
So how does your timeline work and something? How does your product get inserted or get applied or get used, that sort of thing? If somebody calls you tomorrow, how quickly can you make their pipeline quieter?
Right. So as far as just manufacturing, I mean, it's a couple-week lead time, and we can have it there. Typically, um, I would I would coordinate with an engineer on the engineering level, and the device would actually be engineered and designed into a pipeline system before it's even constructed. So that's ideally when my device would be installed. It would be designed into a system and then installed during construction. But the good thing is I offer a threaded version as well as a flanged version, and um, the threaded version can actually be portable. So operators can even carry one of my devices around in their truck, and if there's an abnormal situation where a vessel needs blown down or a small line needs blown down, they can throw it on there and use it. So that's
I was gonna say, I could see where your product would be very reactive in nature. People, oh, geez, this is loud. We should probably turn it down. Okay, well then call you. But then you're saying it's done on the preliminary side of things. I'm going, wow, that probably was a bit challenging for you in the beginning, trying to educate the people. Was it? I guess. I mean, I'm making assumptions. That's how I come up with questions. So without just telling you my assumption, I should probably phrase it like a question. Was that challenging for you to educate the people on why this was needed?
Not really.
Okay, good.
No, not really, because I mean, anybody I've showed it to or done a demonstration for, anyone, I mean, it's just like instantly light bulb, like, holy cow, why hasn't anybody thought of this? Why haven't we been using this before?
Well, that's my question. Is there regulations? I know there's decimal regulations, in cities. That's why you can't have loud parties and 10 o'clock and that sort of thing. But, you get out in the country and start getting some rural properties, it gets pretty, open with certain things. So that's why you got to have some certain regulations that come in. Does that ever come into play where, there's a regulation of noise pollution, or is just that okay, there is. Okay, yeah. Talk to me a little bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it does a little bit. There are noise ordinances at city, county, state level on each of them, and my device does help companies attain compliance with the noise levels. But that's usually not what I try and present my product as, or the need. I try not to present my product as solving that need, because I don't want my product to come across as something that is helping you be compliant with the regulation that's been forced upon you. Like, no, like, this is going to save people from going deaf, and it's going to reduce nuisance on people and animals. Like, it's the prudent thing to do. It's an engineering control, and it's the right thing to do. It's not you have to use it so that you attain compliance. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. And that's why it took so long to come up with the regulation side of it, because it didn't dawn on me till I started thinking more about this. Like, I suppose there's probably even regulations on this. And because the common sense part is the safety. It's the loss of hearing. It's just the sheer vibrations of your molecules, for those scientific folks out there. There you go. Your vibrating of your molecules for a long time just is not good for the system. Eventually, they're going to shake, rattle, and roll a little bit too much in some place. Yeah, So, okay. Is there do you guys have quite a few? Are you able to name customers, clients, or anything like that, or any stories from the field that you care to share that somebody was amazed at the difference?
I prefer not to name specific companies, But yeah, I can for sure tell you just a story, that just and it's really the same story over and over. The first time an operator or whoever is using it for the first time, when they open the valve and hear my device silencing the gas or suppressing the gas, and they don't need to wear earplugs when they're standing right next to it, and they can literally have a conversation with somebody right next to the valve that's blowing gas down to atmosphere. Like, it's just, the look on their face is just shocked and just like really like kind of not amazed, but kind of just like, cool, this thing is cool, like, and it's really cool for me to have been able to make something where I can see that, where like my device is gonna keep people from going to death. And to me, that's, that makes me feel good when I see people that just light up and get happy about using my device, because it makes me feel like, I may have been able to improve the quality of somebody's life, or at least this operator's life.
I like to conclude interviews with allowing guests to go whatever direction they want with an answer, so the question's not framed by me, if you will. So if there's something that you feel that we need to reiterate, or something we left out that you think would be great to talk about, or if you got a great chili recipe, whatever, you want to do on that sort of thing, I'd just like, kind of the floor is yours, if you will, So, if you want people to know something, kind of parting shots. So final thoughts, if you would there, Mr. Keegan Blake.
Yeah, I guess I would say that, we pretty much covered everything. If I had to maybe say anything else, it would just be, there are multiple ways in which my device can help people. We covered the hearing aspect and the noise aspect. Just a little technical note about the device, it's also rotational. So the device is going to export gas away from an operator's face. So if there's, hazardous liquids, or there's hazardous gas like H2S, or really anything that's in the pipeline, methanol, biocide, anything that's being treated with, if that comes through the valve, it's not going to spray an operator in the face. It's going to spray it away from him and, protect him from encountering hazardous substance. Let me see what else I have on my notes here.
That's kind of interesting in itself. It does that, huh?
Yep.
That seems,
Yep,
like it's got bells and whistles on it now.
Yeah, yep, that was kind of just an added measure. Obviously, the most important is the silencing aspect of it, but the fact that it is also completely rotational, 360-degree rotational, and that an operator can, assess downwind or see, if there's a possible ignition source on site, he can now rotate the device and point the gas away from that source. So, other than that, though, no, I don't really have anything, Jason. I'm super excited for the opportunity to sit down and talk with you and just help get me some exposure. Like I said, we just launched. So right now it's just a matter of catch and tread, and this next year I think is going to be pretty crazy, and I think that this thing's going to be taking off here even more than it already has. So I'm just excited and wanted to thank you for the time.